When people think of Japan, the first impressions are usually politeness, orderliness, and a meticulous, detail-oriented culture. Japan is often seen as a conservative, highly institutionalized society where everything is done by the book. Even as a highly advanced nation, traditional arts like kabuki theater and tea ceremonies remain vibrant. It appears to be a nation that fiercely preserves its traditions and maintains a somewhat rigid demeanor. Yet, this image stands in stark contrast with another reality. Japan is globally renowned as a powerhouse in the adult entertainment industry. Countless performers, including famous names like Teacher Tang and others, have educated and entertained men worldwide through their work. During their student years, many recall that Japan produces around 35,000 adult videos AV annually, with at least 3,000 new performers entering the industry each year. Japan's sex industry, particularly in historic red light districts like Yoshiwara and Tobita Shinchi, with history spanning over 400 years, enjoys worldwide fame. Through its bedroom culture, Japan has arguably made significant contributions to global peace by providing an outlet for male desires. This duality is indeed puzzling. When traveling in Japan, one encounters strict etiquette and precision everywhere. Yet, inside convenience stores, erotic magazines and publications are openly displayed on shelves, easily accessible even to children. Why would such a polite, rule-abiding, and seemingly conservative country become a global leader in erotic content, while neighboring countries with rich rural traditions like China or Korea did not? Today, let's explore how Japan became the adult entertainment capital of the world, and why it produces so much AV content. Ancient open attitudes towards sex. Japan has long held remarkably open views on sexuality. As early as the early 9th century, trial marriages, or temporary unions, were common. Unlike modern marriages requiring cohabitation, couples in these unions often continued living in their respective family homes. They might live together if they liked each other, or separate if not, sometimes after just one day, sometimes for several years. Children born from these relationships were primarily raised by the mother. In this system, individuals typically had a stable primary partner, but could also engage in sexual relations with others. This was known as paired marriage or dual relationships. Before the 9th century, having sexual relations outside one's primary partner was considered entirely normal. In rural ancient Japan, the custom of yobai, night crawling, also existed. The term implies men sneaking into women's rooms at night to seek intimacy. According to social norms, men needed the woman's consent, though many cases involved persistence. Key rules included not approaching married women, since everyone in the village knew each other, and only visiting when the husband was away. Men from other villages were generally prohibited from doing so, or they risked being beaten. While the ruling class gradually adopted monogamy around the 10th century, and common people followed suit by the 12th century, introducing concepts like adultery and bride kidnapping, these rural customs persisted in remote areas well into the early Showa era. Religious and environmental influences. A society's attitude towards sex is closely tied to its religion. Christianity and Buddhism generally suppress human sexual instincts. Buddhism discourages attachment to desires, while Christianity views the original sin of Adam and Eve as a transgression, strictly regulating even marital sex, often limiting it to the missionary position, and prohibiting clergy from marrying. In contrast, Japan's indigenous Shinto religion is far more open and permissive regarding sexuality. This openness stems from Japan's geography and history. The Japanese people have inhabited the archipelago for about 50,000 years. The islands are surrounded by sea, with limited arable land, frequent earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, typhoons, floods, and landslides due to the Pacific Ring of Fire. This harsh environment fostered a strong sense of crisis, discipline, teamwork, and meticulousness. To cope with constant threats and high mortality, the culture encouraged living in the moment through pleasure and promoted high birth rates to sustain the population. This is evident in ancient artifacts. Pottery and stone tools from the Jomon period frequently feature phallic symbols, reflecting a deep reverence for fertility and sexuality. Japan's earliest historical text, the Kojiki, Records of Ancient Matters, mentions sex explicitly in 35 places. Even the creation of the Japanese islands is attributed to two deities engaging in sexual union. This openness is preserved in many modern festivals. For example, the annual Kanamara Matsuri, penis festival in Kawasaki, and similar events in Nara involve parades with giant phallic symbols, prayers for fertility, and ritualistic reenactments of sexual acts, often in a comedic or symbolic manner. In ancient times, some rituals were far more explicit. In agrarian communities, group sleeping arrangements, mixed sleeping, sometimes led to communal intimacy after festivals, which scholars have criticized as potentially exploitative or even enabling non-consensual acts in some cases. Urbanization and the rise of the sex industry. While ancient attitudes laid the foundation, large-scale commercial sex required urbanization. In small agricultural villages, everyone knew each other, making brothels impractical. Cities created anonymity. In 710 AD, the Yamato court established Japan's first capital, Heijō-kyo, modern Nara, modeled after Tang Dynasty Chang'an. At its peak, the city had a population of around 100,000. Courtesans, known as yujo, emerged, initially providing entertainment through singing, dancing, and games rather than outright prostitution. Some served elites, others commoners in taverns. Origins of yujo trace back to shrine maidens, miko, who were talented performers serving at shrines along trade routes and sometimes offered sexual services for support. Another theory links them to Chinese and Korean immigrants during periods of turmoil who brought professional entertainment traditions. By the 15th century, during the Age of Discovery, Japanese brothies gained international fame, attracting Chinese, Korean, and pirate traders. Even syphilis arrived earlier via traders than Western missionaries. The Edo period, regulation and growth. After the Sengoku Warring States period, the 250-year Edo era brought peace and rapid population growth. Edo, modern Tokyo, became Northeast Asia's largest city. To maintain social harmony and collect taxes, the Tokugawa shogunate regulated the sex industry by establishing official red light districts: Yoshiwara in Edo, Shimabara in Kyoto, and Tobita Shinchi in Osaka. These licensed quarters featured high-class courtesans called oiran. Cheaper unlicensed options and meshi uri onna, rice-serving women who also provided sexual services, existed at post stations. Public bathhouses, sento, with yuna attendants, also served as venues for intimacy. Yoshiwara was initially moved to the outskirts, but thrived economically, leading to expansions and incentives for relocation. Erotic art, particularly shonga woodblock prints by masters like Hokusai, flourished, blending art with explicit themes. Mixed bathing further reflected societal openness. Modern era, from Meiji to post-war boom. The Meiji Restoration attempted to modernize and civilize Japan, issuing anti-prostitution edicts, but the industry proved resilient. Japan even exported prostitutes, Kariyuki-san, to China, Southeast Asia, Siberia, and Australia in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, often serving colonial forces. During World War II, the military established comfort stations, yanjo, initially with Japanese women and later involving women from occupied territories, a dark chapter with lasting controversies. After defeat and U.S. occupation, Japan provided similar services to American troops. As the economy recovered in the post-war period, the industry rebounded with variety: strip clubs, soap lands, and more. In the late 1960s, pink films, softcore erotic movies, emerged. The 1970s saw the VHS revolution. VHS ultimately triumphed over Betamax, partly due to its adoption by the adult industry. By 1981, over 10% of households had VCRs, and AV production exploded due to low costs. By 1983, there were nearly 100 AV companies. Early AV featured average-looking performers, but the 1986 debut of attractive idols like Kaworu Kuroki revolutionized the market. The industry boomed, exporting heavily abroad. In the 1990s and beyond, AV evolved with idol-style marketing, producing stars like Ai Ijima, Sora Aoi, and others. Companies like SOD, founded in 1995, became cultural phenomena with innovative and often humorous concepts like the Magic Mirror series. Conclusion: a unique cultural product. Japan's adult industry is a direct descendant of its long-standing open sexual culture, amplified by urbanization, regulation, and technological innovation. Its Shinto-rooted permissiveness, combined with pragmatic responses to demographic and social needs, created fertile ground, unlike in more religiously restrictive neighbors. The contrast between surface-level conservatism and underlying openness makes Japan's story fascinating. While the industry has faced criticism and legal challenges, it remains a significant part of global pop culture. Though, as with any content, viewers should approach it with realism and responsibility, and always use proper lubrication in real life.